يا هلا 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 حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا يا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا يا هلا ويا هلا ويا
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the program. It is a Saturday morning and great to be with you. I have three amazing, beautiful women on the show with me this morning. And of course, it is Women's Month. So we're going to be celebrating amazing women. All three of them come from different walks of life, but they all three have very, very important messages for us, women, and also for the men folk in our lives. We're going to be talking Generation M with Kumo Teko. She is a trend spotter. What might that be, you asking? Well, stay tuned. You're going to hear all about Kumo and Generation M as well. Then we'll be talking the stressed woman with a clinical dietitian or nutritionist, and she is the gorgeous Elenia Kolokotronis. We'll be wrapping up by talking about depression and bipolar in women. And this will be spoken from a very personal perspective with Nadia Kaji. And throughout the show, the lines will be open. So keep us company and get those questions coming in. Welcome. We do hope you'll be with us till 10 o'clock. And let's talk about Generation M. What on earth is Generation M? Should we be aware of it? How's it going to impact on our lives going forward? The lovely Kumo Teko is here. She works for Flux Trends. She's going to tell us a little bit about herself, the company, and then Generation M. Kumo, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Lovely to have you here. Now, before we go into Generation M, tell us a little bit about yourself. What did you study?
I have a BA in fashion. I studied at LISOF, and that's where I came across the concept of trend analysis.
How does trend analysis tie in with fashion? Now, I mean, I have spoken with Dion Chang.
Yes.
He obviously is the owner, the MD or the CEO of Flux Trends. We've talked many times on my show, and I must say that the concepts he has brought to the public is amazing.
Right, it really is.
Absolutely amazing. You know, you start thinking differently when you hear people that, come from those type of backgrounds and talk to us about what the present and the future is going to look like.
Definitely. Well, in terms of trend analysis in a fashion perspective, it works together well with everything else that's happening globally. So from economics to political and social movements, they all tie in how, aside from how clothes are expressed, how fabric is made, what resources are available, and that then links into other different strategies of retail. So everything globally that we face every day is linked to how we behave and how businesses then react. And that's what we do at Flux Trends, is that we present trends as business strategies and help you think differently to how your business can remain relevant in the future.
And it doesn't matter what business you're from.
Not at all, because everything ties in together.
The one thing that will forever stick in my mind in one of my first interviews with Dion Chang from Flux Trends is that he said that the future world wars or the future wars in the world will be fought over water.
Yes.
And that's a very frightening thought, and it has forever stuck in my mind.
And you're probably going to see it as well. I mean, the concept of ownership is moving. We no longer just hanging on to materialistic belongings because resources are becoming very scarce, and with a global population that's continuously growing, you're seeing that different companies are trying to find different strategies of creating resources with natural resources, such as companies in Silicon Valley working on creating meat that's made out of plants. So because animals are going to be scarce very soon. So it is.
So you've got to be innovative to remain in the market, so to speak.
Definitely.
And if you don't, adapt or die.
That's what we're seeing in various sectors, such as retail. We recently had an open session called Once More With Feeling, the New Rules of Retail, as we've seen that Starter Foods in itself has struggled and has closed doors.
Sadly, yes. After over 40, 50 years.
You know, and you wouldn't think that that would have happened, but at the same time, you would, like Dion says, that the future is tomorrow. It's no longer 5 years, 10 years from now. So we're there to help businesses in realizing how they can adapt and what else is happening within the world so that they can remain relevant.
Frightening but exciting at the same time.
Definitely.
All right, so this is where you come in. Tell us what exactly is your role at Flux Trends.
I'm an assistant researcher. Aside from that, I'm also a trend spotter, and that's where Generation M comes in. So
before you go any further, what is a trend spotter?
We spot the trends. We take note of what is happening, and we put together the pieces and create a picture so that we can present content to people that is relevant to them.
Now, this is not only locally, it's globally as well.
We put it all together. Yes.
How do you go around assessing and checking out what's happening around the world? And I know we are in the age of technology,
Yes.
so at a click of a button, anything and everything is available. But just kind of talk us through very quickly through the process.
It's a lot of reading. I'll put it that way. It's a lot of reading. It's a lot of interaction with people, with social media, with pop culture. And once you start seeing a bit of a pattern, you just follow it through and continuously collect information till it starts making sense.
So depending how big the pattern is, would indicate to you that this is a trend that is going to be followed in a big way, and here is an opportunity for someone out there.
Definitely. So it's a thing of what we usually use as the 3 times rule. So if you can see it happening in 3 different places, that's when you start knowing. That's when you realize that you need to dig a little bit deeper and to see how far this actually goes and what industries are affected.
3 different places locally, or locally and internationally?
Both. You won't necessarily always find it locally. Sometimes you find that we are a bit behind, or we may be ahead. But because we live in a globalized community, if something happens overseas, chances are it will have an effect somewhere in the continent.
We as South Africa, have we ever been in the forefront of spotting and taking the lead and suggesting what's going to be trending in the near future?
I think the interesting thing about when it comes to South Africa is that as much as we are a third world country, we're probably one of the most developed countries in the continent. However, with Africa, we always have unique challenges. So I'd say concepts of social entrepreneurship, the township economy, which is something that we spoke about as well at our open session. Those are possibly one of the 2 main trends that are still emerging in the country and in the continent that we are spearing ahead of. And the great part about it is that the international market is also now starting to pay attention to concepts of informal business and the role that it plays in sustaining communities within Africa.
Huge opportunities in that market.
An exceptionally huge opportunity.
All right, let's go to Generation M, which obviously piqued my interest and very especially for our listenership. I just think it's huge. So let's look at the importance of Generation M. And what exactly is Generation M?
Yes. Generation M are young Muslim millennials whose aim is to change the global perception of their Muslim religion simply by the way that they live. What they're doing is that they're creating platforms that cater to their market, and they're allowing for the creation of different brands that cater to them and still allow them to live in a modern lifestyle while still following in suit with their Muslim practices.
So they're not necessarily going to be changing the thinking on religion per se, or changing the way we view religion. No. It's more about being trendsetters but still following Islam as was possibly practiced by their parents and grandparents,
Definitely.
so to speak. So It's not, let's just get the record straight there, it's not about changing religion or religious perspectives. No. It's about still being steeped into religious customs and traditions, but looking at trends in the 21st century and how you adapt and as a Muslim live in that 21st century world.
Definitely, you hit the nail right on the head, because what you'd find is that as much as the Muslim population is one of the fastest growing population, it was very marginalized in terms of marketing, in terms of advertising, brands catering to them. And what you're seeing is that you have young millennials, mainly female, who have entrepreneurial skills, and and are now creating businesses to cater to their fellow Muslim peers so that they don't feel ostracized. You have the hijabi, who is known as a fashion forward woman, who you can find has Instagram followers, has a YouTube channel, and she's dressed in her hijab. She wears halal makeup, but she still falls part of the global population of the digital native, but it's still within the lines of her religious practice.
And still makes a huge impact, not only on the Muslim community as a whole, but on the global world.
Definitely, and you're seeing brands are following suit. So you have big brands such as your Mango, your Dolce & Gabbana, DKNY, who have released collections that are pushing forward the concept of modest dress. You have designers such as Anissa Hasiban, who was the first designer to have a full collection of women dressed in hijabs in 2016 at New York Fashion Week. And what you're seeing is that brands and in certain industries, mainly in the fashion industry that's pushing forward, is starting to create channels for the Muslim population to follow suits as well.
How did that showing of hers go down at New York Fashion Week? Each and every model was in hijab, but in hijab and modest wear.
The ironic thing is that aside from women who are Muslim, there are women who are pushing for modest dress.
Non-Muslim women.
Non-Muslim women. So we saw with the bikini that was released by Mark and Spencer in 2016 in Europe.
The burkini, yes.
Yes.
Which is the bikini, which has been adapted for Muslim women. It's
Yes.
very modest and it really covers you up, but you can still go to the beach and have lots of fun.
Yes, of course, and you can still join in the fun. It was sold out, and from articles that I've read, a lot of women are following suit and saying that they want to be covered up, they want to be dressed and not have to show their ankles, and have a choice between wearing short skirts or wearing a long dress that they still feel comfortable and fashionable in.
You can still be beautiful, you can still be educated, you can still be smart, you can still be trendy, modestly dressed. And I think gone are the days when you walk in a mall, and I'd like to think that this is a global phenomena. Gone are the days when you walk in a mall, look at a woman in hijab, and then possibly say, oh, the poor woman, she is oppressed, or she's been forced to wear the hijab.
And what we're seeing as well is that brands are now moving away from that perception. So you have Getty Images, which is an online medium that supplies various images. They have now started creating a collection of images that cater to Muslim women. Because when you go online and you type in a Muslim woman, the images that are usually there are not forward-thinking, and I say forward-thinking in the sense that they are from a one-sided perspective of oppression. So they are now creating a collection that shows that women are carefree and that they can be with their friends and they're not oppressed. Nike as well is releasing a pro-hijab athletic collection in 2018. Well, it will be released for the public in 2018. So brands are starting to move forward, and aside from it being a monetary thing, a concept, they are collaborating as well with the more trend-setting Muslim woman.
Okay, let's take an ad break. I'm talking to Teko. She's with Flux Trends. She's a trend spotter, and she's done research into Generation M. And Generation M is about the young Muslim or the young Muslim millennials, and just how they are taking the world by storm. What does this mean as far as businesses are concerned? Simply that there's a huge untapped market out there, not only in South Africa, but globally. So if you're an entrepreneur, you need to jump onto this bandwagon before it leaves you. So do stay with us. Any questions or comments you have about Generation M or anything else you'd like to know, do call us on the open lines. We're going for a short break, and don't forget, still to come on the show, Elenia Kolokotronis talking to us about the stressed woman, and Nadia Kaji to talk about bipolar and depression in women. Welcome back, and Amina is on the line to talk to us. We are talking to Tumo about Generation M, a whole host of questions, very important questions as far as we, the Muslim community, is concerned, and how this is going to impact on our lives positively, inshallah, going forward. But let's take our first caller. Amina, assalamu alaikum, welcome.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Julie, and welcome to the guests as well. I just want to touch on the topic of covering as a Muslim. In fact, I felt as a child from a young age already that don't actually wear a scarf only in Ramadan. So I started wearing scarf from a very young age. But then later I started wearing a burqa because like my kids, they open at times and I used to have to pull the dress down from the back to actually close my kids. And the cover for it protects us from the evil eye. And the one day I was walking to the shop, and one lady, and it started raining. She pulled her jacket over her head, and I said to her, I've got one.
Thank you very much for your thoughts. Shukran. Assalamu alaikum to you. The beauty of hijab is that it is modest wear, there's respect, there's dignity, and it's also a form of identity as far as we Muslims are concerned. So alhamdulillah for that. And talking about Generation M, you're a young African woman, South African, educated, a woman of the world. How did this research change your perception on Muslims and Muslim women as a whole, and of course also hijab?
It's actually interesting because with regards to the research in the Muslim religion, it actually started when I was in my third year. And we had to write an assignment, and me and my fellow peers did our assignment on the veiled woman and the perception that there is on the veiled woman as it's been deemed. So aside, that in itself opened my eyes to the concept that it's not about oppression and it's about self-expression, and there's a lot more that meets the eye. And when I came across just the words halal economy and I started researching about it and found out about Generation M, it just opened my eyes to the future and how big the population is growing. I mean, it's expected to be 2.8 billion Muslims by 2050. And aside from the growth, there's a huge economy in it, and how we are just, the globe is indirectly, I don't think we see it as in a straight line, but how we are slowly adapting to creating and catering to the sector and population is just amazing.
We talk about the effects of the halal economy or Generation M, and I'm so glad that this piece of research has come around, and I'm so glad to hear. I know that BBC carried a report a little while ago suggesting that by the year 2050, Islam is going to be the number one religion in the world.
Yes.
It will have the most followers globally.
Yes.
And hopefully by then, people will have gotten over Islamophobia and accept and appreciate the religion for what it is. You as a young black African woman has done so much of research on Generation M. Let's look at the effects. You have indicated that by 2050?
2050, yes, there'll be 2.8
We're going to be
billion.
sitting at what is, I know that in the next 4 decades, it is suggested that Islam, the religion Islam, is going to be growing by 35%, and it will overtake all other religions in the world.
Yes, it will.
Going back to the hijab, it's also, as you and I were talking off air, it's about dignity, it's about respect, it's about modesty, and all of those wonderful things. And of course, we know that you are protected. Believe it or not, you are protected just by wearing the hijab. That being said, let's look at the effects globally, what Generation M is having, and let's look at the halal industry. And the halal industry is not only about people, non-Muslims and Westerners, the moment they hear the term halal, they automatically equate it to curry or to samosas, which is so degrading for us as Muslims, because that's not what we're all about.
Definitely. When you look in the cosmetic industry in itself, it's stated that it will be worth 52.3 billion by 2050, you're starting to see that brands are not only just saying that, oh, we're creating hijabs and now we're including Muslim women. It's a lot more about collaboration. So you have a company called L'Oreal who are working on being halal certified so that they can start creating cosmetics specifically for halal women, for Muslim women, sorry. As well in Indonesia, Sunsilk has released hairline products for women who wear hijabs. And Olay, there's a company named Olay in America that has collaborated with an online platform called Muslim Girl, and they've created halal nail polish. So it's not just about association. It's no longer just the association of food or the Oriental Plaza, which would necessarily be the association locally, but it's more of a lifestyle versus it just being bits and pieces.
And I'm sure you've also realized that halal is not only about just not eating pork.
Definitely.
It's about anything and everything that is harmful to our health and to our environment. And that is how responsible we as a Muslim community or Muslim society is. It's about responsibility to the self and to our community and society.
And for brands, it shouldn't be a concept of a campaign, because it doesn't work that way. In Europe, they've started to create specific events that help businesses in aligning themselves with ensuring that they follow the halal practices and ensuring that they remain halal certified. So it's not just a process of waking up one day and saying that you want to cater to this market, and then after a few months, you're going to start being irresponsible, or you're not going to be as proactive as you were in the beginning.
Look, the consumer today is very, very savvy. They'll pick up on all of those issues, and you're going to hurt your brand if you go that route, if you think that you're going to pull the wool over the consumer's eyes. We're very savvy, and we will, they will cotton on to that. With about 3 minutes left to go, yes. I think the other thing, you would agree with me if I say that the South African Muslim community are on board, because all of the trends you're talking about that's happening internationally is happening here as well.
Definitely. There's a store in Rosebank that is called Pop-Up, and it sells Muslim women's clothing, and it's more fashionable. It's not something that you would necessarily see locally. You'd typically think locally that you'd only find hijabs at the Oriental Plaza, as I've mentioned. But as well, the global response is great. The concept of halal tourism, as we've seen in Japan as well.
And I think that perception about Oriental Plaza, equating it with halal and Muslims only, is so wrong. And we stereotype, and we're all guilty of it.
But that's the great thing about the Generation M, is that because they're creating their own platforms, they have their own voice. It's no longer a one-sided thing, and it's no longer a westernized concept of what the Muslim population does and how they respond to certain things.
We are now going to call the shots, so to speak. Definitely. Generation M. Very quickly to wrap up, there's been groundbreaking events happening all around the world, and we as Muslims here in South Africa haven't been far behind either. I understand last year in Turkey they had a completely halal cruise.
Yes.
So a holiday on a ship. But do you know that we've had this running for the past 2 years in South Africa?
Oh wow, no.
Oh yes.
You learn something new every day.
Absolutely. So the halal cruises are taking off in a very big way all around, and I think it's going to catch on around the world.
It's definitely going to catch on. With Japan as well, what they're starting to do is that they're starting to give their companies subsidies for them to become halal certified. They want to have 1 million halal tourists in Japan by 2020 for the Olympics.
Wow,
and they've already
really
started creating hotels that specifically cater to the halal population, to the Muslim population.
Would you say that Malaysia are the pioneers as far as the halal industry is concerned, or is it catching on in a very big way all around the world?
I'd say Malaysia and Japan. So with Malaysia, they've created entrepreneurial programs that help companies in actualizing their concept of catering to the Muslim population. They also want to have 4,500 businesses be halal certified by 2020. Japan in itself, aside from the subsidies, they have 17 restaurants within their country that are not that do not make specifically Indian food as what they used to have that were halal certified. So it is moving forward, and I think it's mainly the Asian population that is catering to the Muslim population.
So Generation M or World, here we come.
Definitely.
In closing, obviously, I think that South African millennials are very savvy as far as Generation M is concerned. They certainly are trendsetters, there's no doubt about that. But what else would you like us to watch out for, look out for going forward, not only on Generation M, but other trends taking the world by storm?
I think mainly with locally in Generation M, we should start looking at the entrepreneurial aspects. Entrepreneurship is something that's going to be rattling a lot of our brains, especially in the African continent. So seeing how that comes forth, and elements of the new perspective of the informal settlements, informal businesses, and how that's going to take shape.
Teko from Flux Trends, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. You certainly have opened our eyes to what not only is happening locally, we know this is happening locally, but what is happening globally. Thank you indeed for your input. And of course, it's really amazing and very heartening to know that these are the trends that's playing out all around the world. And we know that with Zahira Bam Ismail, obviously with iTrend, she also showcases the most amazing trendsetters from our community. So I'm very, very happy to say that we definitely not lagging behind. We South African Muslims are in the forefront of trends and trend setting. Hope you enjoyed the segment. Still to come, Elenia Kolokotronis talking about the stressed woman, and Nadia Kaji to talk about bipolar disorder and depression in women, particularly, especially for today's show. So do stay with us, and remember, lines will be open throughout the show. And now to the more serious stuff. We're going to be talking the stressed woman. Why is it important that we're talking about it today? Well, simply because it is Women's Month, and we as women need to support each other. And of course, we need to put ourselves in the forefront of everyone else's lives. We need to just take a little time out of the hurly-burly life and everything happening around us and make a little time for ourselves. We need to love ourselves. And if we don't love ourselves, no one else is going to do that. We're also going to talk the depressed woman and bipolar disorder, but right now the stressed woman. What exactly is a stressed woman? How does it impact negatively on our lives? The lovely Elenia Kolokotronis to talk to us about it. She is a clinical nutritionist. Good morning, welcome to the show. Wonderful to have you back again.
Very happy to be here. I'm going to move in.
I think so, yes. With your name on the door.
There we go.
Elenia, you are a clinical nutritionist.
Yes.
And today we're going to be talking about the stressed woman.
Yes.
Let's firstly understand what is stressed woman, and somewhere along in the interview we need to understand how important role does diet play in not only the stressed women, but in people in general. So what is stress and how does it impact on us?
Julie, everyone is stressed. So now they've become clever and they've labeled different types of stress. You know, you'll see some people say there's 7 kinds of stresses, some people say there's 4, some people say there's 5. If you're in any situation that has given you anxiety, fear, worry, that's stress. Stress is just a word for a number of emotions that impact you negatively. All women are stressed. Women handle stress differently. Their bodies and their psychology handle stress very differently to men. Any woman that's a functioning, normal, balanced woman has stress. So I used balance and stress together. But stress it's every day. And you have natural, normal stresses. You have a stress that motivates you to do something that needs to get done. If you're a functioning woman, a mother, a businesswoman, you need a certain amount of stress. Those are all natural, normal stresses. But then you go into work stress, you go into coercive stress, you go into trigger stress, all these different stresses that they cause. And those are the ones that do major stress damage to your body and to your psychology. Nutrition is vital because when you are stressed, your psychology is the first thing that starts to tell your body to do things it's not supposed to. So you start to crave stress releases and relievers.
Sugars.
Like sugars. You and I with our sugar. But then there are certain people that take it a step further, and then it's alcohol abuse, prescription medication abuse, recreational narcotic drug use. That'll in turn cause sleeplessness. That'll in turn cause, it's too much to go into now, but it's a very negative knock-on effect. And then the first thing to go is your health, the way you eat, because now you're ingesting all these coping mechanisms.
So you talk the magic word, eating. Let's look at comfort eating.
Yeah.
What is comfort eating and how damaging is it to the body?
Julie, it is probably, I had this conversation with a family a while ago. I said it is probably as bad as excessive smoking and drinking. Probably worse. Because your mindset is somewhere that needs to feel better, and instead of hitting the gym or, doing something productive, the nicest thing to do is to consume that burger or to consume that chocolate, and not one chocolate and you feel better. If you're in a constant mental state of emotional imbalance, you're constantly wanting that sugar rush, that pleasure, and so nothing can compare to that after a while. A salad is not going to cut it. And so what happens is your lifestyle, your eating regime changes to accommodate that psychology, that negative psychology brought on by stress, and your body feels it immediately. Your organs, your digestive system, everything. Food is probably the worst thing that you can do to damage yourself.
It's exactly what you've said now. It's really very worrying, is it not? Because you mentioned alcohol, you mentioned smoking, you mentioned drugs, you mentioned over-the-counter drugs, illicit drugs and over-the-counter drugs. And now we're putting food into the same category.
Your body
the
can't
moment
cope.
you come across someone who is addicted to drugs, recreational drugs, we marginalize those people.
Yes.
But people who are addicted to sugar, and food, people who are comfort eaters or are addicted to food, because there is that condition as well. We're very supportive of them.
I think that, the reality TV shows, they in a way help a lot, because before, if you would see a morbidly obese male or female, it would be, the joke of the day, or it would be this person was so big they didn't fit in the aeroplane seat, or it would be, it would be a stigma of negativity. But I think now the more that people are actually witnessing and understanding the actual physical person, documenting how they got to that point, because I was the first one. I watched a program about a morbidly obese woman that hadn't left her bed for 3 years. And my first question was, how does a person get there? And then I realized it wasn't this. It wasn't what she was putting in her mouth, it was why. And so your psychology is a huge factor as to how you get to anywhere negatively, whether it's weight, whether it's damaging your body, whether it's just...
So it's not necessarily then the food that you need to cope. Yeah, I guess to a certain degree it is healthier food options, but it's really working on the psyche, so to speak. Why?
Yes.
And to start addressing those issues.
Correct.
We're talking stress, and we know that adrenaline plays a huge factor. Talk to us about that. When you get this adrenaline rush, and what's that all about, and how does it impact positively or negatively on stress?
It does both. Adrenaline does both. Adrenaline gets you coping, it gets you motivated, it gets you going. A lot of women are, and men of course too, but a lot of women lately are highly addicted to adrenaline. They don't know how to cope or get a task done or to function in their day without it. Because it's a natural thing that happens, it does both. Adrenaline's advantages are, as I mentioned now, it's a means of motivation. It's a means to get you from point A to point B in your everyday life. As a mother, there is stress involved, but those are natural stresses. I got to fetch my kids in time, to take them to soccer in time, to come back to bake a birthday cake in time, for example.
Just when you say those things, it overwhelms me, which brings us to the word overwhelming,
yes,
or being overwhelmed.
Yes.
Can you reach a point, and of course overwhelm, when you're overwhelmed, it indicates that you are highly stressed.
Correct.
And what is going to happen if you don't keep yourself or get yourself in check, so to speak? What do you do when you feel so horribly overwhelmed, in a dark place,
Yes.
hopeless, helpless? I'm not coping. I'm going to fall apart.
Yes. Julie, the reason why women suffer stress more intensely than men is because we don't say we're overwhelmed. We don't say we're falling apart. We don't say I need help. A lot of the times women will wake up and they turn to their partner and they say, I feel that there's a psychological problem with me. I think I have depression. I think I have major mood swings. I need to go see a psychologist or psychiatrist. I need medication. I can't function. But that would be years after not doing what you've just said now. Because for some reason we're the nurturers, for some reason we're the caretakers, and it's our job to be overwhelmed. This is how we feel. It's our job to be overwhelmed. It's our job to be the protector. It's our job to be the person to make sure everyone's okay. And so we take it upon ourselves to feel that way as long as everyone else is feeling okay. And by everyone else, I mean everyone. Your neighbors, your children, your parents, your partner, everyone.
It's also about acceptance, is it not? An affirmation.
100%.
If I do this for you, or if I do these 5 things in my children or in my husband or in my family's life on a daily basis, I'm going to be loved unconditionally. I'm going to be appreciated. They're going to tell me how great I am.
100%.
Because I can't survive without all of that. All of the stuff happening around me.
You are 100% correct. But also, we feel that the job doesn't warrant them to physically say that, and so we feel that if we're really exhausted, it's okay because our loved ones are fine. And they wake up with a mom that can't get out of bed one day. They wake up with a mom that's decided she's going to eat herself into obesity. They wake up. So the long and short of it is that we forget us. We have no time for us. We are unkind to ourselves. And all we think we need to be doing in our lives is exactly that. Push and make ourselves ill for the better of everyone else.
Time for an ad break. See, girls, what we do to ourselves, it's just not worth it. When we come back, we're going to talk more about how, what is it that we can do to start changing that mindset, being yourself, being accepted for who you are, and get rid of the stress in your life. It's Women's Month, and we want to focus on us girls and how we can get our lives back on track, or perhaps just reclaim some of our space, our lost space, or possibly the space that we gave away so freely. And we're talking about the stressed women. What is it that you can do to minimize stress in your life? We're talking to clinical nutritionist Elenia Kolokotronis about stress and the effects. Elenia, when we talk about stress in women, and I want to focus on women specifically because it is Women's Month, but do women and men experience and react differently to stress?
Certain things will certainly stress men more than women. Psychologically, women take stress a lot harder than men, only because women internalize a lot more than men. Men will come home and they will verbalize it. They communicate their stress differently to women. Women will keep quiet about it. They will continue going on with their day, continue going to work, making sure the kids are fed, inviting people for dinner. We just had that discussion how we always everything's sorted out with food, which is not such a great thing.
Right.
And they internalize and internalize and internalize, and after a while their psychology starts to shift. Whereas men are more, they'll beat their chest about it. They'll verbalize they've had a bad day. They'll be a bit more picky. They'll be a bit more agitated. They might go to gym. They might do something else. But psychologically, women are a lot more affected because of stress than men.
Let's look at the word pressure.
Yes.
You sometimes hear women or even men saying, I'm under so much of pressure. What are they saying?
That's stress.
They're stressed out.
Any emotion that is pressure, fear, uncertainty, worry, apprehension, that feeling of being caged, That's my worst feeling. That feeling of knowing that I need to do something but I can't because of whatever, that caged feeling, that limited feeling. That's all stress. Mm-hmm. It's one word to explain a multitude of negative emotions brought on psychologically or from daily life or whatever it is. But that's stress, that pressure, that anxious, that pressure, that stress.
What will happen? Let's assume you're a very stressed woman.
Yes.
And you do absolutely nothing about it.
You just continue.
There's got to be, something's got to give.
Yes.
What is that, and when will it happen, and how will it manifest?
That will be health, the first thing to go. Health, straight after that, psychology, straight after that, your life, Julie. If you are highly stressed for a number of years and you just keep soldiering on, yes, you'll get the job done. Yes, you'll make birthday cakes for you. For me, I keep using birthday cakes because it's my big thing to make my son's birthday cakes.
Okay.
You'll make those birthday cakes. You'll continue your life. But the quality of the life that you're doing is not worth it. You're going to wake up one day, you're going to either be obese or anorexic. Your organs are going to take a toll. It's going to take its toll on your organs in any way. Your mindset is going to be completely altered, and you will be a shadow of your former self. So I say this often. Continue on this road, and you're going to get to that point where it's too late and you're going to do the if only or I should have. It is tiny, small mind shifts. It's tiny, small little steps to make sure you never get there. Because, Julie, when you have gotten to that point, after many years, 3, 4, 5, 6 years of feeling that stress, that negativity, it's very hard to recover. And if you do recover, it's with the help of prescription medication, antidepressants, and by that time, you're just kind of numbly continuing on.
So what I'm hearing is lifestyle changes, obviously, the way you eat, and you as a clinical nutritionist obviously would punt that in a very big way.
I would.
So it's lifestyle changes.
Yes.
How is exercise, if let's assume you're a very stressed woman and you still try and eat as healthily as you can and taking a bit of exercise on a daily basis, is that going to give you some form of comfort or strength?
Of course, because when you exercise, it's a stress reliever. And when I say stress, I don't only mean all the words we've used, anxiety, fear. It's for your body. Physically, you're relieving stress, build-up of acidity, lactic acid build-up from maybe sitting, your lower back, sitting in front of a computer. It's vital. I'm not saying become a gym bunny. That's not what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. I'm saying anything to get your body to move, movement, muscles. They go together, Julie, because the truth is, and I know it's such a cliche thing to say, but when your body is healthy, I'm not saying skinny and model-like, because thin is not healthy. It's not. When your body is healthy and your mind is healthy too. I remember I was highly stressed and I had the most phenomenal gym coach, and I used to go to boxing class, and instead of boxing he'd allow me to kick the bag, and I'd sit and I'd kick this boxing bag all the time, and I'd go home and I'd feel great. I could take the day on. But that's not for everyone. Maybe yoga is for you, or maybe swimming is for you, or maybe gardening is for you, but your body needs to be active, your body needs to move. And that in turn will go with eating well. And when Julie, it's so important. When I talk about nutrition, I'm not saying no chocolate. Chocolate is great. Mm-hmm. Coffee is great. All the nice things.
All my favorites.
Everything in moderation. Right. There's no such thing as saying you may never eat chocolate, it's bad for you. It's not.
We women, doesn't matter your color, creed or nationality,
Correct.
We women seem to express our love through food.
Yes.
So, we cook up a storm, very especially when you have family over,
yes.
and you feel so affirmed when everyone has had a belly full of food,
yes.
and keep complimenting you on just what a great job you've done. That's the wrong way we're going about things, are we not?
Julie, I was overseas with my family. It was many years ago, and I sat and I watched my aunties, and I watched my uncles and my parents and my sister and I, and I realized it wasn't the actual cooking and sitting at a table and eating, it was the ritual. And as young children, we grow up in that ritual, that comforting feeling of the aromas of food cooking. We're going to be nourished with the food. We're sitting in a kitchen with all the aunties and uncles, that feeling of support, of family.
Of love.
Of love. So I don't know, I don't think it's ever going to go away, Julie, because I do it. And I don't do it to get compliments. I don't do it for any reason other than it's that ritual. I love cooking and I love baking, and so does my sisters, because we were brought up that way. But families that are not like-minded, a lot of families do not do that, live to eat. That's not their credo. They literally are happy to have a piece of meat and a piece of salad, or a piece of fish and some veggies, and go to bed. Some families don't sit around a table. The kids might sit in front of the TV, and one parent will eat in the office and the one will eat in the kitchen. They're very different. Mm-hmm. They're very different.
So it's all about ritual.
I think it's all about ritual. I think it's all about upbringing. I think it's all about culture, a lot more than the physical sitting down and consuming. Mm-hmm. I've tried to not place so much focus on cooking for whatever reason other than to nourish my sons. But you do get carried away. If it's a neighbour's birthday, I love my neighbours, so I'd like to, it's a big thing for me to
And
go
we're
back.
kind of expressing our love through our cooking and feeding our families. But we can still do it in a very responsible way.
Correct.
By starting to introduce healthier options.
Yes, and not having 20 desserts.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Let's wrap up then to talk about the stressed woman, very especially being Women's Month. Women watching us this morning and kind of identify with some of the stuff we've unpacked this morning. What do you say to them? Women saying, I identify, that's what I do, that's where I go wrong.
Yes.
What can she start doing to change things in her life? Some women can't do it on their own.
Correct.
They need help. So what do they do? Who do they go to? Do they come to someone like yourself?
Julie, the Women's Day was so amazing because it was an amalgamation of women from different ethnic groups. It was just a diverse amalgamation of women that stood together to fight for something that they did not see value in, and rightly so. Women need support. We often think we don't. We often think that if we go for a coffee with a friend, we've had our support, they're there for me, it's a phone call away. But that's not what I mean by support. Support is someone to blindly be there for you, whether you are not in the wrong, that's the wrong word to use. They need to blindly be there for you, whether they understand your process or not, because a lot of the time, if you look at a highly stressed woman and her emotion and her body change and all of that, a lot of people are not going to understand it. They're going to tell you that life is unfair and you need to get with it and just roll with the punches.
Get over it or get over yourself. We've got a minute to wrap up time. A very, very important factor which we have discussed on one of our previous interviews, the stressed woman and pregnancy, issues around pregnancy.
Yes.
Just very quickly tell us how important that is.
Your body will not be able to undertake the colossal task of conception if your body is stressed, no matter how fertile any doctor tells you, because your mind cannot allow your body to be receptive to any kind of colossal task, especially something like that when you're under stress or duress.
And if you are a stressed woman and if you are having problems falling pregnant,
Yes.
then the go-to person is Elenia Kolokotronis. How do we find you?
On my website, www.elenia-k.com.
And it was wonderful talking
love
to
being
you.
here. Very happy.
Happy Women's Month
To
to
you
you.
too much,
Thank you
Julie.
for sharing your insights with us.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you.
Elenia Kolokotronis talking to us about the stressed woman, and I do hope that she's touched your life in a certain way. Start making you ask questions about where you are in your life. Where are you at in your life as far as stress and other issues are concerned? And if you feel you're not coping, then please do know that help is at hand. There are people like Elenia that you could talk to and try and get back on track. One more opportunity for women to start taking charge. Still to come, we're going to talk about the depressed woman and bipolar disorder. Stay with us. and we're back with the final interview of the morning, and we're now going to talk to Nadia Kaji. She's going to talk to us about depression and bipolar disorder. She doesn't come from a medical background, but she's going to share her own very personal story with us, and inshallah, by way of the story, we do hope and pray it's going to give you the strength to take charge of your life. If you're going through anything at all, whatever the issues are in your life, just know that with the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with your faith, with your iman, with taqwa, that you can and you will overcome. And with inspirational stories like the one that you're going to hear from Nadia, you will know that there's a lot of help out there. There's a lot of kindness, there's a lot of love, and there's a lot of support. And you can and you will overcome, inshallah. Nadia Kaji, assalamu alaikum, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me here.
It's wonderful to have you here, and I know that you have a very sad story to share with us, but with the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have managed to
overcome it,
pull things and get your life back on track. What is the story? I understand that you suffered from deep depression.
10 years ago, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. I think my depression started in adolescence, and my final year of matric, I didn't go to school for 3 months because it was so bad.
Did you know that you were in depression?
I did know, but I didn't ask for help. I kept it to myself.
Why not?
I think that's the type of person that I am. I tried to hide it from everybody, and I did get help for a brief period of time in my early 20s. But then I decided to move overseas to England.
Let's just take a few steps back. When you were in your matric year and you had this depression, didn't your parents wonder what's going on and what's going wrong in your life?
My mum did, and she was concerned, and she spoke to a lot of people, especially the school, and they were all very supportive in helping me. And with all their help, I did manage to finish my schooling.
Alhamdulillah.
But then in my early 20s, it came back again. I was put on medication, but then I decided to move to England for a few years. And it was only once I came back and got married that the depression got worse, and I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. From then, it's been a long journey, 10 years.
How long have you been married?
I'm married for 13 years.
Alhamdulillah. And I see you've come in with your husband this morning. He's sitting in the lounge watching the interview.
He is, yeah.
He obviously played a huge part in your healing.
He had.
His support and unconditional love.
Unconditional love, it is. Initially, it was very difficult for both of us because I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and it was difficult for him to adjust, and it was difficult for me as well, having this illness.
Did you both understand what you were going through?
He did a lot of research, and he tried to get me the best medical help that he possibly could, and he was just there for me. I mean, the days when I wasn't feeling okay and I wasn't well, it was okay. You don't have to cook, you don't have to do anything, just see to yourself. As long as you get better, that was the most important thing for him.
Now, during all of this time, were you working at all? Are there any children involved in the family unit?
I studied interior decorating, but that had its challenges as well, because with studying, the stress came, and I was hospitalized.
Mm-hmm. And our previous guest spoke about just how damaging stress can be.
It got to a point where I had to have ECT. The shock therapy.
Yes.
Then the following year, I got hospitalized again while I was studying. Alhamdulillah, I completed my course. I worked for a little while, and all that time I was put on medication, seeing my psychologist, having my psychiatrist. A few years ago, Alhamdulillah, I felt a lot better, and I told my husband, he never ever rushed me into having children because his main concern was me getting better.
He sounds like a dream man. Alhamdulillah, you are so lucky, you're so blessed to have him in your life.
Yeah.
So we're talking about your bipolar.
And depression.
How debilitating was it? You had the most amazing man standing and supporting you. But what were you going through during all of this time?
You everything of the best in your life, but even trying to wake up in the morning and getting out of bed is a challenge. You know, if you can do that, you feel like you've accomplished so much in your day. All you want to do is sleep. You don't want to face the world. You feel worthless, hopeless, helpless. But alhamdulillah, with the right medication, I am feeling a lot better. It got to a point where I decided, let's have a family, because I am feeling a lot better now. So we spoke to my doctors to find out if mentally I was okay to have a child. They had to wean me off all my medication. We tried
before
IVF.
you fell pregnant.
I could fall pregnant. The easiest way for me to fall pregnant was IVF, because the longer I'm off my medication, the more risk there is of having a relapse.
And obviously, whilst you were pregnant, you couldn't take any of the meds because it would be damaging to the embryos.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they weaned me off my medication. I had IVF. Alhamdulillah, I fell pregnant with triplets.
Oh, mashallah.
In my second trimester, I was put back onto medication because I needed to be put on back.
So when you needed to be put back on medication, what was happening in your life that you needed the medication?
I think the depression started coming back in. And that was going to be bad for me and for the baby. So the best thing for them to do was put me back onto medication. I was fortunate enough that after I had given birth, I had my doctors, my psychologists, my psychiatrists all looking out for me. They were scared about me getting postnatal depression. But because I was on medication, I didn't get it very severe. Unfortunately, 10 days after I'd given birth, my daughter passed away.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
You know, it's all in the hands of the Almighty. And 17 days later, my son passed away.
It's so painful for you.
It's okay. And
how long ago was this?
My daughter is going to be 4 in October. And alhamdulillah, Eva survived. It's been very challenging with her, you know, from seeing OT, speech therapist, neurophysio. But she's come such a long way. She's done so well. And alhamdulillah, I've been better. I've been doing so well now that I finally started my little business.
Shukr.
Yeah. And I finally have a purpose in life, apart from seeing to Eva and my husband. I'm happy.
Mm-hmm.
And things are going so well for me. But people need to realize, and women need to realize that depression is it's an illness. It's a medical illness. And the only way you're going to get better is if you seek help. Yes, you do make dua, but you need to realize that the Almighty has given these doctors the ability to help you. And you shouldn't be suffering in silence. Because a lot of women do, there's such a stigma attached to it that they don't tell anybody about it.
They're afraid they're going to be marginalized and people are going to say that they're mad or some such thing, because there is a stigma to mental conditions.
Yeah.
And you're right, we're so afraid that people are not going to want to have anything to do with us.
Yeah. And, you know, there generally is, why don't you just snap out of it? Try
Get
to be
over
a little
yourself.
bit happier. It's all mind over matter. Or they'll say your iman is too weak, you know. But they don't realize it is a medical condition. And
it's a chemical imbalance in your brain.
It's a hormonal imbalance. And there's so many things that can trigger it. It could be your thyroid. It could be lack of vitamin D, your hormones, menopause, premenopause, postnatal depression, bipolar is genetic. So all these things play a role. And it's not going to take a day or a week for you to get well. It's going to take years before they find the right dosage. But you need to stick with it and you need to see your doctor. Sometimes you need to see a psychologist, sometimes you need to see a doctor, sometimes you need to see both of them. But you need to stick, and don't listen to people if they tell you to come off your medication. You need to stick with it. Also, what happens is initially when you start medication, you tend to feel sleepy all the time, or your appetite might change. But your body needs to adjust to all this medication. That that you've been putting on.
All right, let's take an ad break. When we get back, we're going to talk more about your story and the fact that you were brave enough to come into the studio today and share your story with approximately 2 million people all around the world. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you for that. We're talking to Nadia Kaji, and I'm actually blown away. I can't believe that she's been brave enough to come into the studio to talk about her condition, her life, and just how she is coping. And alhamdulillah, I have no doubt in my mind that it's going to inspire all of us watching this morning to also take control of our lives and to make our presence felt and to let people know that we do count. Let's take an ad break. Our guest is Nadia Kaji. She's here to talk about her personal experience through depression and bipolar disorder. And of course, as I've indicated right at the outset, she does not come from a medical background. She's just here to talk about her personal story. It's Women's Month. She wants to reach out to other women. And it doesn't matter what your condition is. She just wants you to know that with Iman, with taqwa, inshallah, you can overcome and you can make your presence felt in the greater scheme of things. Nadia, back to you and the whole issue around support, the babies, the children, the one little girl. Her name is Eva.
Eva,
mashallah, yeah. Mashallah. You're coping well.
I am, alhamdulillah. I've got a wonderful family that have always supported me, but you also need to have a team of doctors. You need to have your psychiatrist, you need to have your psychologist, you need to have even your GP that understands what you're going through. And alhamdulillah, I have all of that. So.
You said just now before the ad break that obviously there's a stigma attached to mental illness. People do tend to marginalize you, and you probably would feel cut off, or people just would not interact too much with you simply because they don't understand, or whatever else goes through their minds about your condition.
Yeah.
Why did you decide, I mean, this is such a public platform,
it is,
and come and share your story here today. It must have taken a lot of courage to do that.
It does, but I feel we don't speak enough about it. There's so many women out there that are suffering. 1 in 4 women will experience depression symptoms in her lifetime, and nobody talks about it. There's such a stigma attached to it, and I think in our Muslim society as well. And they don't get the right support from family, from friends, at home.
What sort of support would you... I know that you've indicated to me that your parents-in-law and your husband are amazing. Without them, you couldn't have done it.
My mom's been extremely amazing.
That's wonderful. Yeah. But obviously, we're also talking about the outer circles of our relatives and friends. What would you like to see differently?
You know what, not everybody's going to understand it, but try and be a little bit more compassionate to somebody that's going through it. Reach out a hand to them, visit them, even if they're not in the mood to go out, take them out for coffee.
Do you find that when you go to functions, people would just choose not to interact with you?
No, I was very fortunate. Everybody would. The problem was I wouldn't go to functions. For many years, I chose not to interact with anybody. I didn't feel like going out. You feel worthless, helpless, hopeless. You have this loss of energy. You don't feel like you want to go anywhere. And that was me. I'd rather stay at home.
Now, your bipolar manifested in you being very, very depressed.
I think it did, but I think it was also genetic.
Mm-hmm. Were you ever in the high phase, ever with lots of energy and feel that you can conquer the world?
I did.
How long did those phases last? And when you were in that phase, what were you able to accomplish? Or was it too scattered?
God. It's very scattered. Your decision-making is all over the place. You don't have logic, but your mind works brilliantly. I think my interior decorating profession was great when I was manic. But the problem with having extreme highs is you have extreme lows as well. Where it tends to take you into suicidal depression. And you need to know your symptoms. You need to know if you're manic, you need to contact your doctor and you need to tell them this is how I'm feeling so that they can do something about it.
Adjust your medication
adjust
probably.
it or admit you into hospital so they can monitor you. These things are all very important. I noticed that apart from a lot of women suffering in silence, a lot of women don't even know they're going through depression. All they think is, I need to be strong, I need to get on with things. So they don't get the right help. And their lives become they don't have any pleasure in their life. They just go through the motions, they're just existing, they're not living anymore. And I think it's important, if you feel that way, go and get help.
Have you ever contemplated suicide? Were you ever in such a dark place where you thought, I need to and I want to end it all?
I have. My problem is I started cutting my wrist. And what I'm afraid of is when my daughter's older, she mustn't ask me about the scars because it will be hard to explain to her what it was.
Well, maybe as you're being so honest with me and our viewers this morning, inshallah, Allah will give you the courage to be able to be open with her and tell her this is an illness like any other illness, like a cancer, like a diabetes, any other condition. I am now suffering or I suffered from this condition.
I feel with other illnesses, people are a lot more sympathetic. When you're diagnosed, you tend to get the treatment that you need immediately. With depression, it takes years before the dosage is right. There's a lot of stigma attached to it, so you don't get the support that you need. I just wish a lot more people will come out and speak about it.
So you are saying that, inshallah, with the right support, with the right team of medical professionals, you can lead a very, very or a regular life as you possibly can. How regular is your life as we speak now?
I don't usually drive before 10 o'clock in the morning because I'm still very drowsy from my medication.
Okay.
I still have an off day, but it's not all the time.
What is an off day?
An off day is where I feel very down or where I'm very anxious the whole day. And then I know that, I need to sleep for a little while. And my daughter's at the moment in nursery school.
You've just got the one child.
I've just got the one. And her teachers have been extremely supportive. The days that I don't feel well, it's okay. I can leave her for an extra hour in school.
You just need to inform them about it.
I just need to inform them.
How has all this impacted on your husband and his life?
I think initially it was difficult for both of us, and he was currently doing his MBA, so I did feel very alone at times. But he's been such a wonderful support, alhamdulillah. The thing is with him, he's read up a lot on bipolar disorder. So he understands it a lot better. And I think with a lot of women that are going through this, they don't have the proper support from their husbands. And that's very sad.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And for women suffering either bipolar or anything else, what do you say to them today?
There is hope with the right medication and the right treatment, and it might take years before you get well, but you will get well. You will have your on days or your off days, but it's not going to be the way it used to be. I've started a little home industry business, and I finally feel like I have...
It's only 2 months old, am I right?
2 months.
What motivated you to do that? I really admire you.
The thing is, I asked my doctor if I can study, and she advised me not to because she's scared that
the pressure would be too much.
And my husband won't allow me to go out and work because he's scared that it might become too much for me and I might relapse. So I made granola the one day. I said, let me try it out, and it came out perfect. And I told my husband, you know what, maybe I can start selling this.
A home industry.
A home industry. So that's what I started. And alhamdulillah, it's been going very well. I've been getting a lot of customers and a lot of support.
So you're running a home industry, you're selling homemade granola. How do people get hold of you to order?
I'm on Instagram.
Right.
It's called, my company is called The Edible Mosaic Company.
Okay.
And yeah.
Oh,
And
well,
I'm
good
really
luck. I do hope that it grows by leaps and bounds.
Inshallah.
And, you know, that I'm just so amazed by the story that you're sharing with us. In the next 2 minutes, we're going to be wrapping up. What else do you want to share with our audience this morning, as far as it doesn't matter whether you're suffering from bipolar or depression or any other illness? We know that it can impact very negatively on your life. What's the message you want to leave women with today?
You know, we care about you and we love you. And if you come out and if you share it and if you tell us about it, we're going to support you, because we've all been there. Whether it's cancer, or whether it's diabetes, or whether it's depression, we need to come together and we need to support each other.
Do you attend a support group? Are there support groups for bipolar and depressed
There
people
is,
suffering?
but I haven't attended. My psychologist always asked me to have my own support group and to help others with bipolar, because she always felt that I was. She found me inspirational, and she thought that I'd help others that are going through the same thing as I was.
Well, I certainly think you need to do that, especially since you've been on my show this morning, sharing a very, very personal part of your life with us on air. We do appreciate it. We applaud you as being a super strong woman, despite everything that's happened in your life. And we hope and pray you're going to start that support group, inshallah. We need to wrap up now. One final word to the viewers.
Get help. It might not take a day or a week or a year, but you will overcome it, inshallah. You really will. And you will find a purpose in life and you will be happy again.
Our thoughts and du'as with you for an amazing life going forward.
Thank you.
Is that an amazing story or what? She is so brave, she is so beautiful, she is so amazing, and of course she's got the right person at her side, her dear husband. On that note then, let's wrap up. I sincerely hope you've been inspired as much as I have till Wednesday morning at the same time. Take care on the roads, and as always, Khuda Hafiz from me, Julie Alli.
Ya hala, ya hala, ya hala. يا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا حن قلبي على جمرة الخير هلا حن قلبي على جمرة الخير